This is the bedroom where I leveled the floor by raising it up on the right-hand side by a few inches. And I've done the same on the ceiling by lowering it on the left-hand side to make it parallel with the floor and level. So now I'm attaching a block to hold the electrical box for the ceiling fan. This room is just a little bit less than 12 feet long, so I've bought some 12-foot long drywall panels. That way I don't have to have any joints from front to back. So I'm going to use a panel lift because the 12-foot long sheet of drywall is pretty hard to handle, even with my wife and daughter there to help. I'll cut it to length and then I'll cut a hole for the heating vent. On the next sheet of drywall, I'll cut a hole for the electrical box for the ceiling fan. The ceiling fan is mostly assembled, and this is just the last step to get the LED light installed. Next, I want to replace the window at the back of the room. I've already replaced the other 4 windows. I'll start by removing the window jambs on the stool, and then I can pull the window out. I was originally planning to build a new window sill, but that would require me to reframe the entire window. So rather than doing that, because the window sill has a little bit of dry rot, I'm going to just fill it with some Bondo to fill all the gaps, and that will make it pretty strong, and it should last many, many more years. After we'd already put in the insulation, my daughter asked if we could install a couple of wall sconces on either side of the window. So while the Bondo is drying, I will install a couple of electrical boxes on either side of the bed for the switches, and then I'll install the electrical boxes to hold the wall sconces in place. To install the window, I'll start by applying some silicone sealant, and then I'll lift the window in place. I'll use some shims to make sure that it's level and plumb and square. And then I'll drill through the shims to attach it to the frame. And then I'll apply some spray foam around the edge of the window to seal it up. Next, I'll install the drywall on the walls. And I like to use a multi-tool for cutting the holes for the electrical boxes. That makes the job really, really quick and easy. And I showed Kat how to fill all the screw holes with some drywall mud, and she has an interesting technique with her fingertip. After the first coat of tape and mud, I'm sanding everything. And with a sander like this, it almost makes drywalling enjoyable. Almost. And now I'll put a second coat of drywall mud and feather it out nicely. Next, I'll apply a coat of primer on the drywall. It's highly recommended to start with primer on unpainted drywall because it's so absorbent, and also on the drywall mud. That gives a nice even coat of the paint afterwards. Next, I'm going to start on the wall sconces, and I'm going to make these out of a leftover piece of quarter sawn white oak that we had from the door that we made for the front of the house. The wall sconce is going to be a pretty simple design. It's going to have a faceplate that attaches to the electrical box, and then it'll have a cylinder that comes out that the wire will run through. So I'm cutting the wood so that I can make the faceplates and the two cylinders. And for the faceplates, the wood doesn't have to be that thick, so I'll just resaw it and slice it down the middle. I'm going to cut two faceplates, and each faceplate is going to be a circle. So there's two ways to hold the wood down that I can think of. One is to clamp the board using hold down clamps. But then when I cut the circle, because I'm cutting all the way through the wood, I would have to leave tabs to hold the wood in place. And that requires a little bit of extra sanding at the end. So I'm going to make my own double-sided tape instead. So I'm doing that using painter's tape and CA glue with some accelerant to speed the process. So the CNC is going to start by cutting a couple of recesses for the head of the screw to sit in. Then it's cutting a hole all the way through in the center, And that's so that when I flip the board over, I'll be able to know where the center is. I'm using my Laguna IQ CNC router to do all this work. And I've flipped the circle over, and now I'm cutting a recess for the electrical box to fit into. Next, with my lathe, I'm going to cut the cylinders. And I'm turning the end smaller to fit into the hole that's in the faceplate. Next, I need to drill a hole for the wire to go through the center of the cylinder, but I don't want to go all the way through to the end, so I have a piece of blue tape on the drill bit to mark where I need to stop. Next, I'm making a little piece out of wood where the screw that screws into the light socket is going to go. And I'm making this because the plastic piece that came with the light socket is not big enough in its inner diameter to hold the wire that I bought. Next, I'm drilling a hole into the bottom of the cylinder, and that's going to meet up with the hole that I drilled horizontally. And I'm drilling this at about 35 or 40 degrees. And now with a little bit of epoxy, I'm going to stick the screw into that little wooden piece that I made. And then I decided to bevel the end of the cylinder just to add another design element. I'm using a 16th inch round over bit just to ease the edges of the faceplate. And now I'll apply a little bit of Odie's oil to put a nice finish on the oak. And now it's time to start trimming the windows. And I'm going to start with the window jambs. And I'm using hickory for this. And the only reason I'm doing that is because I found some hickory that was really inexpensive. I've already measured each of the windows, so I know how wide to cut each of the jamb pieces so that I can do that at my workshop and not be measuring as I go. Now I'm cutting the window stool. And it didn't take me very long to realize that I had cut the horn incorrectly, so I'm recutting that now. And for the window stool, I rounded it over with a 1/4 inch round over bit. For all the other casing pieces, I used a 16th inch round over bit. And the jamb pieces are not rounded over at all. I'm going to do a craftsman style window casing. So I'm using MDF that I've already painted white on one side. MDF is easy to work with and is very inexpensive. I tried to optimize the use of the MDF panel, so I got almost everything out of a single panel. In fact, I got all of the casing except for the window aprons out of a single panel. I brought some scrap pieces of wood with me that I had made to be 1/2 inch, 3/8 of an inch, and 1/4 of an inch thick. And that way I could use those to space the window jamb pieces and the stool away from the frame of the window as needed. I'll start by putting in the window stool and the head jamb, and I'm just putting a single nail in each piece for now until I get everything fit. And then I'll put in the side jambs. I'm going to make the head casing out of 4 pieces of MDF. The first piece is going to be 2 inches deep, and it's going to be the same length as the window stool. The next piece is 5 inches high, and it's the same width as the 2 side casing pieces. And then on top of that is another 2-inch piece, and I'm just using my level to make sure everything's in alignment. And then this last piece that goes on top is 3 inches deep and a little bit wider than the piece beneath it. For the other windows along the side, they were so close to the ceiling at the top that I didn't have any space for a nail gun or even a hammer, so I'm using glue and clamps to clamp everything in place. Next, I'm installing the apron, and this is the same width as the 2 side casing pieces. And then with a little bit of paintable caulk, I'm able to seal up all the seams. Now I'm attaching the wall sconces, and it's just 2 wires that go to the socket. There's no ground wire that goes to the socket, so I'm attaching the ground wire to the electrical box. And I've got this old-fashioned rope wire. It wasn't that easy to work with because it was a little thicker than regular wire, and that's why I had to make that wooden piece to attach to the socket. For the light switches, I wanted to have a 3-way switch so that either person in the bed can control the sconces on either side of the bed, and that would have been pretty easy to wire up using a regular switch. But I also want them to be able to turn off the other light that's in the bedroom from their bed. And that was an existing light, and the wall switch is in the other part of the bedroom. So the easiest way to turn that into a 3-way switch was to use the Lutron Caseta wireless smart lighting dimmer switch. So that's what I've done for the wall sconces as well. So I've got 2 switches in each box. 1 switch in each box controls the wall sconces, and the other switch controls the light that's in the other room. And it's a pretty cool way to add multi-way switches to your house with your existing wiring without having to run any new wires. So this other switch on the other side of the bed is a Lutron Caseta Pico remote, and you can see there are no wires at all in this box. It's going to be just 2 of these Pico remotes. And on the other side of the bed, it's going to be 1 hardwired switch, and the other switch will be a Pico remote for the switch in the other room. And now the room is pretty much done, but Kat, with her artistic flair, wanted to add a little bit of decoration by hand painting some faces on the wall. So that's it. This room is pretty much done. The only thing that we have not done yet is the flooring, and we can't put in hardwood flooring yet until we finish the renovations for the entire upstairs. And once that's done, the last thing we'll do is put in the flooring. Next, we're going to work on expanding and remodeling her bathroom. Thanks for watching.